Hello guys, good evening. This is Shashank Nigam here, CEO of SimpliExcel Training International and certified John Maxwell coach. I have been profiling success icons from around the world in my feature called SimpliExcel Success Story. Now, you would possibly agree with me that every parent waits for that day and works to see their children grow in life and succeed. And today is a very proud moment for me when I have the opportunity to interview my own son, Shashank Nigam, as a success icon for my feature SimpliExcel Success Story. To introduce Shashank to you, I know all of you. Shashank Nigam is the CEO and founder of a company called Simply Flying. It's a major consulting company around the world with operations, which has helped about 84 airlines and airports in the world to excel. This company, Simply Flying, is in the business of aviation, branding and strategy, and has operations at multiple places. Now, Simply Flying, Shashank's perspectives have been profiled in over 800 journals, in many media outlets, including BBC, Reuters, New York Times, Bloomberg, and many. Shashank's clients, or Simply Flying's clients, include Emirates, Singapore Airlines, Bombardier, Airbus, and the likes, and many more. It's a huge list of clientele. So I'm feeling very honored and proud, to have Shashank with me today, and I'll be profiling his success journey of over 10 years. And I'm sure his success journey is going to be a source of huge motivation to the next generation for the future generations to come. So welcome Shashank on board, and it's feeling so great to have you interview for my feature. Now, starting here, Shashank, you might recall that you were growing up and you were studying in SMU, Singapore Melbourne University, and you did a double major degree in information systems management and a degree in business management. And subsequently, you also went to Carnegie Mellon University, US, to pursue your information systems course. And from there on, you started your career with a Boston IT startup. And that was very interesting, and we were very proud because you had got one of the best jobs in Boston in your entire cohort, possibly one of the highest paying jobs there. And you started very well there. And within 1.5 years of that, you took a major decision to switch over to start your own business. Now, I would like to request you to possibly touch a little bit on that journey. How was the Boston job starting? What were the experiences, and how you started moving from writing a blog, which ultimately turned into being a major fledgling airline branding industry in a company?
Firstly, it's quite unique to be interviewed by your own dad. It's usually the other way around. You're interviewing lots of famous people. I'm interviewing lots of people, but it's quite unique to be interviewed. So it's a pleasure to have this conversation. Yeah, I remember 10 years ago, I was always interested in things that fly, planes, mostly, and the business of airlines and how airlines work. And while I was working with this tech startup in Boston, I always used to keep looking out of the window, looking at planes landing. I used to have airplane models on my desk, and one day my team lead said to me, "Hey, so why don't you go work with an airline?" And I said, "Yeah, why not, right? It's just that it was 2008 and the whole world was crashing, 2007, 2008, and there weren't that many jobs within airlines." I also had a deep interest in marketing and branding, even though I had not studied the course. So I thought, hey, what if I combine the two? And that's where Simply Flying, the blog, was born, in which for every week, thrice a week, I would write an article on the intersection of airline branding, airline marketing. Most of the perspectives were, I would say, novice, and I did not have any experience or background in aviation. So it started from there, and slowly that got traction. I remember writing a white paper, and I've actually got the original copy here. This is the 6X model that I created, and I wrote a white paper. This was back in 2008, I believe, and
Yes.
this was the model I created.
Yes.
And this was a 6X model. And I wrote this white paper, and this is the actual copy from 10 years ago that I had emailed a person called Don Skenk in New York. And I said, hey, what do you think? And Don had taken copious notes throughout the white paper. When I reached his office in New York taking this Chinatown bus, he had notes on the side, he had notes everywhere. And I said, wow, he's actually read it. That itself was heartening that someone of his stature is reading it. And I thought, hey, you know what? There's actually something here.
Yeah.
Probably I'm onto something. And he gave me some very good feedback. And the most important point was, he said, Shashank, these are great ideas. And this is great theory. But one of the things is, how do you make this practical? For example, if you walk into Richard Branson's office and say, hey, Branson, I'll teach you branding. What will he do? I said, he's going to kick me out. And Don said, exactly, he's going to kick you out. So you got to think about how to make this practical, how to make this actionable. And more importantly, how do you build credibility as a 25-year-old in which most people you are talking with have been in the same airline for 25 years or more.
Yeah.
And that's where the technology angle came in and the social media angle came in. So SimpliFlying really became about the intersection of airline, marketing, and digital.
Right. And I remember when you were talking about starting your own company and entering into a business venture focused on airline branding and social media. And we had this question. You want to start a business and a company, and you would be competing with people with 20 to 30 years of experience in airline industry, and you actually have zero industry experience. How would you enter into that niche market and create a space for yourself? Mm-hmm. So that was a question always in our mind as parents, and of course as parents would always feel they don't want their children to take risk, and they're very protective of their children, and that is what we were always feeling about you. And when you were talking about a blog being converted into a company, and and in fact around 2008 when there was a downturn, mm-hmm. you were even thinking in terms of quitting your job. It's a very well paid job, and you were very well recognized in that company. I remember Boston, that company was really appreciating you while they were turning people out. They wanted to hold you, and we said, you want to quit the job at this stage, maybe you wait for a bit and establish yourself a bit and then take off.
Yeah.
So these were, as parents, were our thoughts.
I remember, in fact, the situation was that I was waking up at 6 a.m., working on SimpliFlying from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., going to office at 9 a.m., and coming back home at 6 p.m., having my dinner, and then working on SimpliFlying again from 8 p.m. to 12 midnight. So I was working 8 hours on SimpliFlying and 8 hours in my day job. So something had to give.
Yeah.
And to be very honest, looking back, I had not a clue on how I'm going to make money. I had no clue how I'm going to turn this into a business.
Right.
I had a blog that was getting maybe about 200 hits a day. Most bloggers at that time were making money selling t-shirts with their logo on it or mugs with their logo on it. And while I didn't necessarily want to do that, I knew that, with the timing part, something had to give. And if I don't jump now, it might be some time before I do something seriously.
Right. And then you took a major decision to quit your job and move back to Singapore. And of course, when it came to us, we were very supportive. We totally believed you that yes, this something is going to happen. We had no doubt about your success. But as on the hindsight, parents are a little scared or rather cautious about these kind of major moves. But we were in fact in our heart, because since I was already into a business of my own, and I had experienced challenges of starting businesses while working on, I didn't have much of a concern, except that fine, you want to give it a shot.
I remember Mummy was concerned. I wouldn't say nobody had any concerns. Yeah. I think there were fears, there were lots of doubts.
Yes.
More because I did not inspire any confidence, I had no experience, I had no business plan. I just wanted to quit and come back home and start working on this.
Right.
And I remember December 2008, I quit my job. January 2009, I moved back to Singapore.
Right.
And incorporated SimpliFlying in June of 2009.
Right. And then new things started happening in Singapore. You went to SMU and met the professors and talked about your proposition and your white paper. And they said, yeah, it's a great idea. But you know what? how about Shashank, you do a PhD
Mm-hmm.
on this subject,
Yeah.
and we'll own the patents of the subject, and finally, but we will get paid while doing the PhD. So there was a discussion at home, and we agreed that no, you are not doing enough. There's no point doing the PhD because you have the concept, and you don't want to sell that concept for cheap to Singapore Management University in the name of a PhD. And I think you finally. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was an interesting discussion. I remember going and visiting one of the deans, and I shared with him. I literally printed on photo paper my 6x model and said this model is applicable not just to airlines. You can apply it to healthcare. You can apply it to vehicles. You can apply it to telcos. And you know what? This is a great PhD thesis. So why don't you spend next 5 years working on the research on applying it to multiple industries? And I was thinking, wait, but I want to do this for airlines, and that's what I want to do. Moreover, I really wanted to apply this and right away get working with airlines rather than just keep thinking about it in my own head. I'm sure there are merits of doing a PhD, but maybe I would have started with a book then, as opposed to writing a book at the end of it. But I think it wasn't an appealing option, even though the tunnel for the entrepreneurial journey was still quite dark. There was no light at the end of the tunnel yet.
Right, right. And then you know what, the journey started.
Mm-hmm.
Slowly the journey started, blog started becoming in. And blog became really an enterprise. When you got your first break of speaking in a major conference in Abu Dhabi. Why don't you touch on that story?
Yeah, as an entrepreneur you have to hustle. You have to somehow, make do. There's this word in Hindi called jugaad, in which you just get it done by hook or by crook. So I applied some jugaad, and there was this conference happening in Singapore at the end of January, and the fee to enter that conference was $4,000, and I said, this is going to wipe out my savings. So I called the number saying, hey, can you let me in as a blogger, as a media? But Singapore is the toughest place in the world to get a media pass. So they said, sorry, you need to show us your media credentials to get in. And I said, there's no way I'm getting Singapore media credentials. Why don't you please let me in? I will interview your speakers and I will put them up on YouTube, which was in its infancy at that time, and you'll get exposure. And I didn't hear back until the morning of the conference where they said, hey, you know what, we'll let you in. And I dressed up, went down to City Hall, to Suntec City, and attended that conference for the first time. I interviewed Azran Osman Rani from AirAsia X, Sanjeev Kapoor, I think it was, from Indigo, and a bunch of other people. For the first time, I was sitting in the conference, just Peter Harbison from Kappa. Industry stalwarts who opened up to me, and I just put a camera in front of them and started recording it. But also being at the conference, I just became a sponge, started to learn what the industry is about. I also noticed that half the speakers did not turn up. These were CEOs of airlines which had something major come up at the end, so they backed out. As I was walking out, I saw that the same organizer is having a conference in Abu Dhabi in March. And I said, hey, I would love to attend. I meant it like a media again. But they got back to me saying, hey, would you like to moderate a panel because you're independent? I said, sure, I will be happy to moderate a panel. When I went there, I knew that people will back out. In my pocket, I had a USB disk with a USB drive with a presentation on branding through the recession and marketing through the recession. And I said to the organizer when I landed in Abu Dhabi, about every 15 minutes, I went to him and said, has anyone backed out? I'm ready with the presentation. Has anyone backed out? I'm ready with the presentation. Has anyone backed out? I'm ready with the presentation. At the cocktails in the evening before the thing, and he looks at me and says, it's almost as if you want someone to back out. I said, no, I just want to help. I'm right here. Let me know if someone backs out.
Yep.
And sure enough, next morning, 10 a.m., he says, Shashank, our main keynote speaker, the CEO of one of the big Middle East airlines, is not going to turn up. You said you had a presentation. Do you mind just going up? I said, sure, happy to help. Anything for you. And I went up on the stage. I did the presentation with a room full of airline leaders and media, expecting an airline CEO to come in. And by the end of that day, I had moderated a panel. I had given a keynote speech. I was interviewed by 2 newspapers and misquoted as well. I was on CNBC Arabia being interviewed live in Arabic. And this was at the end of 3 months, by hook or by crook.
Yep.
and started to build some credibility in the industry.
Yeah, right. It's always said that, it's said that you get what you expect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the success mantra I always follow. You expect positive and you get it. And that's what happened in your case. That you were expecting somebody will back out okay, to your benefit, and that's what happened and gave you the inroads into the industry. Right? Beautiful. Now, just looking back a little bit, you have grown in a family where, as parents, me and Anita, my wife, we have built a network marketing business to a large scale. And you have seen us grow in a family environment while taking care of the job, also while building the business and balancing the family gain. What were your lessons learned in that family environment, and what do you think, in what way the environment of the family helped you mature as an adult?
I think there were a couple of things. It's a deeper question. First and foremost was the belief that it's okay. No matter what you do, the family is with you. You're not being judged. You're not being judged about quitting a job. You're not being judged if this business turns out to be a failure, which, by the way, is a big taboo in Asia. Failure is about losing face, and you don't want to fail as a business or as an entrepreneur. And just the fact that, hey, you know what, there's belief in me, and it's okay. Come back and give it a shot. I think that was the first and foremost thing. The other was the spirit of positivity, or expecting a positive outcome, I would say. It's not so much about positive thinking and the mantras, but really expecting a positive outcome at the end of you trying something. I've seen you try it when you move from India to Singapore, or from Singapore to Canada later on. I've seen Mummy try it in her, not just home, but also teaching career. And I thought, hey, you know what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is I'll wipe out my savings at the end of 6 to 9 months, and I'll go look for a job again. But in the next 6 to 9 months, let me try to at least break even. And I think that was the spirit.
Right, definitely. That, I'm sure that helped,
Yeah.
And nurture the thought process. Now, every single person in life is bestowed with some positive or strong areas, but he also has to develop and grow on certain areas as you go through the journey of life. So what were your key strong areas when through the beginning? And then what are the areas you had to develop yourself and grow to succeed and bring yourself to this level of success?
Yeah, I think on the positive side, I'm known to be very enthusiastic and passionate. I think it comes from you, it's in the genes. I really love aviation, and when I speak on the stage or with clients or in meetings, it comes through. And I think that makes me and my whole team, in fact, stand out. That people at Simplify are really passionate about what they do. They know what they're talking about, and we truly stand out. It's deep within us. I think that's a huge strength, and that passion has transpired into the team as well. They really walk the talk. On the negative side, I think, is the ability to identify your blind spots, or just the fact you realize that there are blind spots. You've got to figure out what are the things you don't know, and then surround people with the strengths that are your weaknesses. So first comes the recognition of these weaknesses.
Right.
For example, in my case, I don't really like the numbers and the legal and the accounting stuff that comes with running a company. I like the marketing and the commercial other sides of things and the travel that comes with it. So I suffered for a long time, and then in the end I hired an accountant to help me with those things. I wasn't particularly good, especially in the initial days when it came to taking feedback from the team. I thought, hey, this is my idea, let's just do it. If we fail, that's okay, but let's just give it a shot. But I think I've become a better listener and much more patient over time as well, rather than pushing my team and everyone around me, let's just do it tomorrow, or this was due yesterday. It's okay, if it's 2 days late, what's the big deal? It's fine. So I think I've become more patient, which I wasn't earlier. I've become a better listener, which I think my team has told me as well, so that helps. And you combine that with passion and enthusiasm, and I think it goes really well together.
Absolutely. Okay, now the change. Change is the hardest thing to implement these days, or for that matter, for anybody. People have grown in a certain way, and they find it so hard to change. They just don't want to change. Now, what changes you have to implement yourself in your own thought process, your working style, to really adapt and be successful?
I think the biggest change I've had to do, truly, is when the babies came along.
Okay.
It wasn't the moving. I mean, I have done simplifying as a remote location anyway, so we've worked with Singapore, Uganda, Ottawa, Toronto. That's been completely fine. I've adapted well. But the moment kids came in our lives, Sana and Sama came, that was a big mindset change. I used to travel a lot. I often would take you and Prajakta along with me as well. We would travel a lot. And that was part and parcel of life. But once Sana came, I had to really reconsider. I would not only travel less, I started traveling, I would start doing shorter trips. And, I, for example, did a day trip to Brunei from Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
I spent 26 hours in the air there, 18 hours on the ground and 26 hours back.
Wow.
I regularly do day trips to London. I take an overnight flight, get there in London in the morning, do my full day meetings and come back home and sleep in my own bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one thing that's changed. With the kids, it's also about schedule and managing the schedule, and I wouldn't say it's a balance with family. I think the work-life balance is a wrong adage because it says that they are mutually exclusive. But I think because it's not that if you do work, you have to give up family. You can actually achieve both, and that's what I'm trying to do. And that's been the biggest change I've had to adapt to, managing with both the kids. And so it's like raising two kids and raising a business. What's harder? Perhaps raising two kids and then raising the business. Like raising the business is the second hardest thing to do.
Yeah, I can understand. I mean, with the two kids around, little kids around, oh my God, I definitely totally can agree, what kind of changes, thought process, temperament, managing adaptability, so many things are required to change when you have the family coming up, right? Yes. Okay, now, coming to SimpliFlying's team. SimpliFlying has 100% remote team, and it's a global team.
Yeah.
You have people based in India, in UK, Spain, India and Canada, 4 countries. And they have different time zones.
Yeah.
And you know what? You're still able to manage your operations, and you have been serving you have served 84 airlines and airports. That's amazing, How do you do the balancing game? And how do you manage your global team? And also, you are known for having a very out-of-the-box thinking with regard to the work culture.
Mm-hmm.
You have implemented some huge initiatives which have been even covered by the Harvard Business Review and applauded. So out of the work culture. So why don't you talk a little bit about your team and your work culture implementation?
Yeah, I think the biggest asset of SimpliFlying is its people. I'm truly privileged to have the kind of team I work with, truly privileged to have the people I've worked with in the last 10 years and who have stayed with me for 8, 9, 7, 6 years at a stretch. And that's because, a good company name can attract the right people, but a good company culture keeps them there.
Yep.
That's the difference. A good name will attract them, but to keep them there, you need a good culture.
Yes.
And what is culture? There are lots of books written on it, but I distill it down to just one thing. Your company culture is something that should make the person, wakes up every morning excited about working there, and it's something that makes working in your company very unique.
Yep.
The fact that we are 100% global from day one makes us unique anyway, but the culture is something we've really worked hard upon. So we have this thing called culture experiments. We have a forced leave experiment running, which is now permanent, it's no longer an experiment, in which every 7 weeks, the 8th week, every single employee needs to take their 8th week off. And not only do they need to turn off, they cannot reply to emails or Slack messages or WhatsApp messages or pick up phone calls for work. They just have to disconnect. And if they don't, they get their pay gets docked for that week. They don't get paid for that week. This is the one that resulted in the Harvard Business Review case study, which was a great honor. It's also now a subject of a new book on remote working, which will be published by MIT Press this year. And that's an experiment that boosted productivity by 70%, creativity by 33%, and happiness by 27%. And we measured these metrics for the employees. So that's just one of the things. We tried Deep Fridays, in which we try to have no meetings on Fridays, and we try to just do deep work. it didn't work in our case as well because we are not necessarily interacting so much every day. So we did away with that. Our latest experiment is called No Bad Hair Days experiment. In this, every morning we have our team call. We've had that anyway. Every morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Singapore time, we have our team call. But now, every employee is required to turn on their camera for the team call, no matter how their hair looks.
Yeah.
And we've tried this for about a week now, and I think it fosters better team spirit to be able to see each other because we are remote. So let's just try something different. I think we have a very fun culture.
Yeah.
We are friends at retreats. We have 3 to 4 company retreats every year in which everyone comes together at a really cool location. So we've had this in places like Vegas, Colombo, Seattle, Budapest, Agra, Singapore, and we come together for a week. We live in the same Airbnb, large place. We cook together, we eat together, we really have a lot of fun together. And at these retreats, we end with an exercise called the Post-its. On Post-its, we will write 3 things that we admire about the person and things that they are doing well, and 1 thing that they need to improve.
Right.
We will write it for everyone. It's an exercise that takes time, and then each one reads aloud what was been written for them.
Yep.
And the other person has the opportunity to explain why I said this or why you should change this. I think all of this cumulatively makes simplifying a very good workplace, even though it's not a workplace.
Yep.
It's a remote workplace, right? And we see each other only that much, not every day. And I think that's key. We have a culture that keeps people here for a long time because they're happy to be working here.
Right. And then the flexibility of working.
Yeah.
They can work any number of hours at any time of the day from any place in the world.
Yeah, I remember Gwen once worked from a tree house in Chiang Mai in Thailand for a whole week. She just had Wi-Fi and that's all was needed.
Right. So that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I'm sure the employees really applaud that, appreciate that a lot, that flexibility.
Yeah.
Because the time-bound, controlled hours of working 9 to 5 and all that, that's very restricted. Okay, cool. Now, coming to September 2016, the D-Day came when you launched your new book, Soar.
Yeah.
And that was really a moment for us to see. That was one of the happiest moments for us to when we saw your book being launched. We were present in London to celebrate the launch along with you, and that was really, we still feel so happy to see this book in our hand. And and you published your first book at such a young age. And you know what? Just to tell the audience, 9,000 copies of Soul are in circulation in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
And the new focused editions are coming up. For focused on WestJet, the latest one is coming up, and there are many more airlines for which you're writing the focused editions. Very nice. So why don't you talk a little bit about this journey, because it took a bit of time, about a year,
18
of
months.
focused efforts, and your company operations is still on. You were still managing your company, you were still having kid, your first kid was already here, and then you were still writing the book. So balancing game and then accomplishing it in such a short time was amazing,
Yeah.
Why don't you talk this journey a little bit?
So this has to be the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Writing a book, the 18 months I spent writing it, were really, really tough, and I couldn't have done it without my team, who basically took over all projects, and I wasn't involved in too many projects at that time when I was writing the book. And on the family side as well, Prajakta and everyone supported me so well. My biggest regret is not having Sana and Prajakta at the book launch party in London. I wish we had planned a little ahead, but writing this book was such a great journey. It's primarily based on, it's a book that reveals the secrets of what airlines do right to delight customers and inspire employees. And so deep dives using first-person interviews and stories on what makes these airlines great. So you have everyone from Singapore Airlines and Southwest to Turkish Airlines and Kulula in South Africa and Finnair, which, by the way, is one of the largest European airlines in China.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? What makes them a huge success? And for the book, I did over 200 hours of interviews.
Wow.
So it's based on first-person stories. I absolutely loved flying down to the airline headquarters, doing the interviews with the people, spending a lot of time with them, learning their stories. There were tears in the interviews. They got emotional talking about some of their journeys, and that was the best part. That's where it ended. Then came the writing. And that I had heard about writer's block, I had heard about things that writers struggle with, and I encountered every single one of them. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. After writing my first chapter halfway through, I could not type a single word out. I don't know why. I'm used to writing blogs. I've probably written more words in my blogs till date than words in this book, but I just couldn't carry on. And I was stuck. 1 month passed and I had these deadlines. I need to write 400 words a day. That became, I have to write 4,000 words today just to catch up. And that really started bogging me down. And I spoke with my publisher and my editor, and they were very supportive throughout this process, and we worked together to get over this hump. Shubhadeep helped out with some of the writing. The editor was great, and so was Matthew. Matthew was great, and my publisher, ID Press, Rohit Bhargav. They were great. Prajakta supported reading the drafts along with me, and we had the book written out. And we thought, okay, we're done. But then, if anyone thought aviation is broken, wait till you meet publishing. Publishing is complete mess. It's a complete wreck of an industry. It's so broken, it's so hard. I'll give you a simple example. The launch party of Sword was in London, UK.
Yeah.
My publisher is based in DC, in US. So the plan was they would ship the books to me to Canada, and they would ship the books directly to the UK. But then, because of the deadline for launch, there were some delays. They said we might not be able to make it because the UK has huge custom delays. So if we ship, 1,000 copies of the book to the UK, they might be held up in customs for checking, and that might result in a delay of 2 days to 2 weeks. And we said, okay, we can't deal with the variability. I said, why don't you ship them to me in Canada, and I'll carry them with me. I didn't realize that 1,000 books is a lot of overweight check-in luggage, which will cost me a lot more than flying myself to London. I said, okay, you know what? Let me drive up, drive down to DC, put all the books in my boot, and drive up to Canada, and then I can do it. Maybe somehow figure it out. Did not work, and now we are really approaching the launch date. I said, you know what? The only solution is we got to print the books in London. And the publisher is like, I have no printer in London. My printer is here in Virginia. Okay, let's see if we can find some remote printers. The publisher starts searching. I reach out to one of my good friends, Max from Flight Global, which is a magazine I write for. And I said, Max, who's your publisher? And Max connects me to this company, Printers, just outside of Surrey in the UK. And we start talking to them. I in the end get 3 quotes from 3 printers who are able to produce the book in time in the UK. I get my publisher to send all the files to the UK.
Oh my God.
They have to change all the formatting because the UK format is different from the US format.
Mm-hmm.
They have to change the ISBN number because that's not for sale. Everything is different. It has to say printed in the UK as opposed to proudly printed in America. Little things. And the book finally goes to print, and we get the books the day before the launch day.
Wow.
And that's when they had to work the long weekend. There was a long weekend, Labor Day weekend, I think, and they had to work the long weekend to ensure that the books come in. So that was just one of the many things, the hurdles you have to cross to get the book published. And in the end, it was a fantastic journey, a great learning experience for me. Yes, you're right, there's a second edition coming out with more airlines. We're also doing special editions for certain airlines. The Western special edition is coming out. So a great journey. I get an email or 2 every single week from someone who has read the book and who has written me a long email, and that's really heartening to know the kind of impact the book is having on people I've not even met or known.
Right, definitely a great narration of a story, a journey, in fact, not a story, a journey of writing a book. And I know there must be many more experiences in this whole journey of writing a book. And of course, I'm waiting for that day when I can write a book of my own, being inspired by you. Okay, now coming to another new milestone in your career and career path was the Facebook Live show. Okay, in March 2017, 1 year earlier, you took a major initiative of launching a Facebook Live show with 2 little babies at home. with the company operations going on, with 7 a.m. call, with your teams and so many other priorities in life, you took a challenge and decision to go on live Facebook and launch Facebook Live and maintain that consistency of having that show continuously. And you have just completed 250 episodes of Facebook Live, and that is commendable. That's amazing. That kind of discipline and consistency. Why don't you touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, you said it's a major initiative, but in reality, every major initiative starts as a minor step. One of the team calls, I told the team, hey, you know what, Facebook Live is interesting. Let's see what we can do with this. I'm going to launch a daily show. And the team was like, what? Why? How? How will this scale? How will this grow? And my point was, let's just start. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how long we can take it. We'll see if we run out of topics or not. Let's just start. My primary aim of doing this was so that I can communicate my own thoughts on the latest in the aviation industry, on entrepreneurship, on our workers' experiments with my own team. Because we didn't get enough time to talk with each other every day. So I want to make sure that I can communicate with them. Anyone else who watched it was bonus on top.
Right.
So I started this as an initiative to communicate with my team regularly.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it was daily.
Right.
To figure out the timing, that you're right, it's hard to slot it in. So I just said, I'm going to make it part of my morning routine. So I have my team call right in the morning, and then I go take a shower, and right after the shower, I have my show, and then I do anything else.
Right.
So same place, same time every single day is actually easier than trying to figure out when in the day will I do it. I don't have to think about it. It's about just putting it in the routine. So now it's a routine, and I've indeed done this daily show every single day for the last 1 year, every single weekday, and 256 episodes later, it's been watched over 200,000 times. I have done over 35 interviews with CEOs, big airline CEOs, from Tony Fernandez at AirAsia to Steve Udvar-Hazy at Air Lease to Lufthansa CEO Carsten Spohr, and it's been a great ride just doing the show.
And you have been managing your show even when you were traveling.
Yeah, I have actually hosted the show from Los Angeles airport, from a lounge in Frankfurt, from a restaurant in Jeddah where I was in a males only section. I've actually hosted it from Singapore, Paris, Singapore at midnight because of the time difference. I've done the show from everywhere I've gone. I just take my camera and my banner along, and I put it up and I do the show.
Wow. But I'm sure it requires a lot of self-discipline and focus.
Yeah, I think it's the will to just carry on.
Yeah, right. Okay, now with the books visible here, it very clearly tells the viewers that you are a ferocious reader. You read a lot. And the fact is demonstrated that in this year itself of 3 months, you have finished 9 books. That's what I was talking to you the other day, and you have finished 9 books. I remember that day when even reading 3 pages of the book, I'll fall asleep. And that's the problem with many people, that it's so hard to read a book. That too when they know that reading book will add value to their own personality and thought process. So how did you develop this habit? I know you have been reading from the beginning, and you have been reading big books, very thick books. So how did you develop this habit to become a part of your life culture? And then the second question, which of the couple of books you would like to name that which impacted you a lot and most?
Yeah, I read a quote. I don't know who the quote is from, but I read a quote which said that in 5 years from today, you'll be exactly the same person, except for the people you meet and the books you read.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I said, okay, I got to control the people I meet and who I hang out with, and I got to figure out which books I read. That's when I took the decision to read more. Reading also gives me to be very honest, the ability to tune out from all the kid stuff that is happening around, from diapers to school drop-offs, and I can be in someone else's world. My favorite types of books are actually biographies. I love reading biographies, from Steve Jobs to Sachin Tendulkar to this is Jeff Bezos. You can see a lot of these are biographies to Manubhai Madhwani from Uganda. And a couple of books that have had a really big impact on me of late have been, one is Einstein's, I think it's right here, Einstein's The Life and Universe. This is by Walter Isaacson. And 2 books, but that's okay. This is by Walter Isaacson. He's actually my favorite biographer, and I've got almost all of his the biographies he's written, and it's a very good look into Einstein's life. We think we know about Einstein and the genius, but he was just a very, very curious person.
Okay.
And it's about how he explored life and how he learned things and basically shared his learnings. And the other book I have recently taken to, which I try to read every single morning along with my journal, is Tim Ferriss's Tribe of Mentors. They're just very short snippets, and you don't know which person you will find the inspiration from.
Right.
And then I Google those people and learn more about them, but they're not as dense and thick as Walter Isaacson's books. So those are the two books of late that have had a big impact on me.
Fantastic.
There's a book actually I love to gift. It's called Overthrow. Overthrow is a book by these guys, Morgan. I'm forgetting the author's name. But Overthrow is a book which talks about how do challenger brands overtake the market leaders. And it's a very good book. I think I've gifted more than 10 copies of Overthrow to different people.
Okay, excellent. Now, every single success journey requires prioritization and focus. You need to prioritize things because you will, a lot of time, today's word is about a distraction. The word is full of distraction, whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's YouTube, or whether it's whatever it is. The smartphone is a source of distraction. And then alongside of it comes, if you want to focus and you want to succeed in something, you need to prioritize. How do you embrace those two principles of success in your life? And at what stage you embraced it, and how did you make it a part of your life?
I think the most important thing for focus is not, it might seem obvious, okay, you choose what to focus on. But I think what's more important is learning to say no to a lot of things. We've learned over time, I have learned over time to say no. This was a very hard thing for me to do. I'm a yes person, I just say yes to everything. We've learned over time to say no to two things. We say no to projects we know will suck all our energy and may not produce the result. And now, after 10 years, we have the experience to identify these kind of projects, which will be just time vacuums. And we say no to those projects, we say no to those clients, and vehemently avoid those. The second is among one of the simplifying mantras. There's one mantra which is called "Don't deal with jokers like Joe." Joe is a real person, by the way, and he's not a clown in a circus. He's a joker nevertheless. Joe is a person whom I dealt with in 2011. He works at a major airport, and he made us run round and round and round in circles for about 8 months. We had 11 meetings and 93 emails back and forth, at the end of which we decided, you know what, all Joe wants is free ideas from us, so he can figure out what to do himself, and he will never give us a project. He loves us because we give him free ideas, and we figured out, don't deal with jokers like Joe. That's a mantra, and in the team we have this Joe alert. Anytime someone on the emails or someone outside says, hey, this is Joe coming, the team will say, Joe alert, and we know that we have to avoid jokers like Joe. So, learn to say no to projects which will not take you in the direction of your dreams and in the direction of what you want to achieve, and learn to say no to people who will be drain on your energy and time.
Absolutely well said. Now, if you have to identify one person as a successful person in your life, which comes to your mind, if I talk of the word successful, who is the person that comes to your mind and why?
It's got to be Tony Fernandez.
Okay.
It's just the latest biography I've read is right here.
Wow. Okay.
I just finished this last weekend, and so he's fresh in mind. And I've met Tony a few times and have always been very impressed. I've interviewed him a couple of times as well. But his story is that of just tremendous amount of grit. Every single thing that could go wrong in his journey did go wrong.
Okay.
And yet he persevered. He decided to start AirAsia after watching a TV interview of Stilos, the CEO of EasyJet. I mean, how many of you will watch a TV interview of someone and say, hey, I want to be like that guy, and then next week go and start the airline or go and start a business that the TV personality was doing? Tony Fernandez did that with no prior experience. He was from a music industry background. All he knew were music people, so he hired them. His first head of route development was a journalist who used to write for the papers. His head of marketing was from used to launch CDs, not planes. And they said, hey, let's build an airline that is like a music CD. Let's launch a single, which is a route or a person, and then build another single, and then you have an album, and then now you have the whole airline.
Okay.
They just applied those techniques. They were just very curious. What impresses me the most about Tony Fernandez, though, is that he is a very genuine leader.
Mm-hmm.
Often, airline CEOs, large corporate CEOs, billionaires, surround themselves with lawyers, with people who are advising them based on how do you limit risk, how do you reduce your liability. Tony doesn't think like that. When there was a plane crash that happened back in 2014, December 2014, he just went on to Twitter and started apologizing to his staff. He said, "I'm with you." To families, when he was at a press conference with the transport minister in Indonesia, one of the relatives started hitting him in the press conference, and he did not resist. He said, "It's okay. They are just venting their fear, their anger." And he's just a very genuine leader. He rewrote the crisis communications booklet just by being genuine and not following what's in the manuals. And I think that defines his life. He does not say no to anything. He keeps, doesn't take no for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't take no for an answer when doing things. And, he will overcome any obstacle if he really badly wants it.
Wow.
Be it starting an airline or owning an F1 team or a football club in the English Premier League. He's done it all. And he's done it all with all the odds against him.
Wow.
So I'm very inspired by him.
Fantastic. And it's great to have some inspiration in life.
Yeah.
Because you tend to learn from people. You always tend to learn from people who have accomplished beyond you. You emulate them and they go on, learn to from them. Now, if you have to identify 3 people you look up to,
Mm-hmm.
who would they be?
These have to be people whom I've personally known. I look up to Robin Speculin. Robin is one of my mentors. He's mentored me since before Simplifying days. I met him in 2006 actually,
Mm-hmm.
in Singapore while I was a student, and he's been a great mentor through thick and thin. He inspired me to charge for my first ever speech when I said to him, "Why would anyone ever pay me to speak?" He pushed me and pushed me and pushed me to write a book, and in the end I did. For many years he was after me, and every time I go back to Singapore, we sit in his balcony, we play a game of squash, we sit in his balcony and have a nice long brunch together and discuss lots of things, and we are very frank, and he's one person who truly inspires me. He himself has built a very successful and strong career as a strategy implementation consultant.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one person who inspires me. Let's see. Professionally, that's one. I think collectively, I'm quite inspired by my team. They, in the initial years, put faith in a business that wasn't proven. We were going through uncharted waters, and the early guys who came along with me, Shubhadeep, Gwen, even Zahid, who was there with me for just a little while, I think they deserve to be thanked and felicitated for their faith and belief, and I think that's quite inspiring. And even the guys who are around now, Marco, Baiba, Dirk and Gina, who are just chugging along and just going strong after 10 years of Simplifying, I think that's really inspiring. They each bring something else to the table. They're very different people. They could not be more different from one another. And yet we perform really well as a team. And I think on a personal level, I'm very inspired by both you and Prajakta, my wife. You have taught me the value of dealing with everything with positivity and enthusiasm, and let everything else take care of itself. Just keep going at it. And Prajakta has taught me to be much more patient and much more thoughtful and analytical in doing things rather than just jumping in. And I think both of these put together has really benefited me.
Okay, very nice. Now, the journey always has ups and downs. A success journey always has ups and downs. Now, if you have to identify the most memorable day of your success journey, what would that be?
I think that would be the book launch day.
Okay. Cool.
When the book launched in London, and already we spoke about it, it was so heartening to see so many of the industry people turn up, from top journalists to airline executives whom I had known for a long time, and it was really, really humbling to have them speak and help me launch the book, and that was one of the big highlights of my time. And the other big highlight was not a day, but a period in which I was working in Qatar, in Doha, where I was part of the Al-Maha startup team, and that was 6-7 months of exhilarating work. I absolutely loved it, being part of a startup airline team, having Project Plan Sana with me.
Now, every single success journey also goes through failures sometimes, and you write the failures, embrace it, learn from it, and move on in journey, right? So, in your success journey, if you can remember any failure or apparent failure which you embraced, and then what were the lessons learned there, and how did you move forward from there?
Yeah, I think strategically we made decisions in enthusiasm and excitement early on. For example, entering airports. We spent 3.5 years and significant amount of money pursuing airports, but we realized that, and we worked with very good airports from London Heathrow to Halifax to Kuala Lumpur International to Toronto Pearson. We did great work, but what we realized was airports require a lot of time and effort for maybe 1/5 the returns we're getting from airlines. So we decided not to pursue airports, but I felt that we left a little late. We could have left airports early. So now we use that lesson in terms of that. I think the other failure in the initial years was, as I said, I don't think I was a very good listener to the team. I think I've become a better listener now because I've seen the results of that. Team members may get dissatisfied, but now it's really about hearing them out and ensuring they're all heard, especially because we are remotely based all the time. So that's the key.
Right. Now, in the success journey, we always sometimes have to find time to say thank you to people.
Yeah.
Gratitude is one word which indicates humbleness, and the person gets elevated when he expresses thanks to people. So if you have to express gratitude to 3 people in your life who have contributed to your success journey, who would they be?
I think it would be Robin and Dawn and my family. Come here. Yeah. And
There you go.
my family. So my kids, my wife, you and mommy, they've all been so supportive. Sometimes she is standing in the room in my office while I'm doing my live show, and she stands quietly in the corner like this, and she will not say a word. So I'm really thankful to these 3 groups, I would say.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, we always make investments and we spend money through the journey of life. We always spend money big and small. Now, if you had to remember one purchase investment of $100 or less recently, which added the biggest value to you, what would that be?
It has to be my standing desk.
Okay.
My standing desk cost me $50, and for the last 1 year, I have not sat at the desk.
Okay.
I have been standing every single day for 8 hours a day working, and it's changed my life. My back doesn't ache anymore. I maintain my posture. I do my live show standing up. That's one, but that was last year's purchase. The most recent purchase of less than $100 is the 5-minute journal.
Okay.
Cost $28 on Amazon, and I'm not a person who journals. It's a journal for people who don't journal.
Okay.
Every morning, first thing in the morning, you write down 5 things, and you're done in 5 minutes. And that's all it takes. And I've been able to stick to it every single day. And I think that's one of the best purchases I've made.
Cool. And based on I got motivated to buy that too. And I have started writing that too. I'm also not a journal writer, but then I have tried to put some discipline with that.
Yeah.
Okay, now if you have to advise, there's a lot of college students who are going to complete their education would be in the real world of jobs, right? If you have to give a piece of advice to a fresh college graduate expected to come out in the market and face the real world, what would that advice be?
I think my main advice would be take time to figure out what you really want to do. It's okay if you don't know. It's okay if you don't have all the answers. Just take your time. And when you do find it, overcome every single hurdle you've got. Just keep going in pursuit of what you really want to do. It's not just about finding a passion or true calling. Those are big concepts and everyone says that. But I would say take your time. There's no hurry. Take your time in figuring out what you really want to do.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, every big thing in life comes out through a dream. Okay, it's dreamed by somebody.
Yeah.
What's your dream?
I would like to impact 1 million lives. And be it through my work in aviation, be it through my other work, but I would really like to be like Dr. Muhammad Yunus, one day impacting 1 million lives, and more importantly, impacting those close to me even more deeply.
Right. Very good thought actually. Many people don't think of that today, but it's great that that vision is there already in your mind. Now, the last question which I always talk to all my success icons, if you had to define success, how would you define that?
I think success is about pursuing your dreams and pursuing your goals while being humble and being kind. I think very often people who are successful and people who are pursuing success are not kind. But ultimately, if you are just, a train that's rummaging through villages, lots of damage is going to be caused.
Yes.
So while you go for success, make sure you're kind, and you'll leave a trail of flowers, blooming flowers, rather than rocks and thorns.
Right. Beautiful message. Very good definition, and I've heard from you. Excellent, Shashank. It was absolute pleasure interviewing you today as a success icon for my future. And I'm sure this story, this journey of yours of past 10 years will motivate a lot of people, a lot of younger generation especially, that if you believe in yourself and you have a vision for yourself, you can always accomplish it, provided you're willing to pay the price for it and you prevail and persist.
Yeah.
So thank you very much again.
And thank you for coming along and being such a great support in the last 10 years.
Absolutely.
Well, last 35 years.
Yes.
And more.
Yes.
No,
It's always a
years.
pleasure. As I started the interview, the biggest pleasure of life and the biggest asset and victory of life for anybody is to see their children to grow and succeed and surpass them. That's what has happened for me, and we feel so happy about it. So congratulations for what you're doing, and I know you keep soaring day in, day out, and this is just the beginning. Sky is the limit for you. So all the best to you.
Thank you for the interview and the blessings.
Thank you.